What's up, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Just Another Horror Movie Podcast. I'm your host today, Corey Riley, aka twitch.tv/SileyGames, and I am joined by the movie fanatic, Johnathan Ross. as well as the music man, Bennie Radford.
What's good, you guys?
I was about to say you can speak. Don't worry.
I got you.
Don't let Johnathan set the tone there.
Silent.
And of course, I am joined by the Marvel-loving Twitch streaming Captain Britannia himself, twitch.tv/OddsOdd.
Yo, I have arrived. I am here.
Yeah, he is here. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Just Another Horror Movie Podcast, where today we are talking about Alien. Directed by Ridley Scott with a runtime of 1 hour and 56 minutes. It was released on May 25th, 1979 at the 4th Seattle International Film Festival in 70mm at midnight, almost exactly a year prior to Stanley Kubrick's The Shining. It had a wide release on June 22nd and then September 6th in the UK. It was a budget of $11 million and a box office of $106.3 million. And I don't think that's adjusted for inflation, guys. So I think that's like actually what it made, which is pretty crazy. It was also, of course, the screenplay was written by Dan O'Bannon, and starring Sigourney Weaver as Ripley, Tom Skerritt as Dallas, Veronica Cartwright as Lambert, John Hurt as Kane, Ian Holm as Ash, I'm reading the whole entire cast list, Harry Dean Stanton as Brett, and Yaphet Kotto as Parker, and of course, can't forget, the alien, played by Balaji Badejo. I may be pronouncing that wrong, but you know what? I'm doing my best here, guys, so work with me. The music was by Jerry Goldsmith, who is famously known for Star Trek, Rambo, Planet of the Apes, Gremlins, Mulan, The Mummy, etc. Cinematography was by Derek Van Lint, who is known for X-Men 2000, which I don't think is definitely his magnum opus, but it was produced by Brandywine Productions and distributed by 20th Century Fox. Now, I want to do a little something fun before we get into everything. I want to go around and tell me what you guys are drinking tonight. Johnathan, I want you to hit me first.
Why, of course. This is my own version of a whiskey sour. It's a little Buffalo Trace with some Blue Sour Patch Kid flavor BCAAs and a little bit of like a kind of a yellow Gatorade flavor pre-workout that is a Max Herning of Alpha Elite fame, athlete shit that's nerdy collab, and I put that all in some water, mixed it with my Buffalo Trace, and now I've got myself a little kind of swole boy whiskey sour.
That is
with my skinny arms.
That is amazing. I was not expecting you to talk to me about the BCAs there. It does definitely, and it matches the vibe of this, because obviously we are reviewing Alien, which has got that kind of like, as you see my background here, the neon green type stuff going on.
I like it.
Benny, what you drinking,
Yes,
man?
Sir. So, I went to the gas station like a little while ago. I got myself some Gatorade. You already know. I have to keep myself hydrated, also keep my electrolytes and everything. So, yeah.
Classic,
that's what I'm doing.
classic. I also dig the, I also dig the Ultra Instinct DBZ shirt.
I appreciate you, my guy.
DBS, I guess, at that point.
Well, yeah. Yeah, it's all good.
Now, Senor OddsOdd.
Yes, I am drinking something pretty intense. I call it water.
There's always somebody on the podcast who's drinking water. Yeah, Johnathan. So me personally, I am drinking one of my favorite whiskeys, Woodford Reserve Kentucky Bourbon. It's in a nice fancy little glass that I stole from my parents' house. So
Amount of it too. That's a couple fingers there.
don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. I may have poured too much. It's all right. It's all right.
Can't go back.
I want to give a couple quick little fun facts before we dive into impressions. Probably two of them before we get into everything, because I do want to go in some order about what happens in the movie. This movie was originally called Star Beast, a much worse name, it seems. It was, but something I believe it was Dan O'Bannon. He was writing one night, trying to think of a different name to it because he didn't want to call it Star Beast. And he was writing the scene where they're talking about the alien. He just stared at the word. It was like, this is it. So, Alien is what
scared.
Yeah, Alien is what it ended up being called. And if I'm not mistaken, was it this movie that was like the tagline was "No one can hear you scream," or in space, "No one can hear you scream," or is that it was this
That's
movie?
the one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I think it was very interesting direction because it is obviously a science fiction movie, but it is most definitely a horror. No argument there. I think it was, if I'm not mistaken, one of the first to try to combine the two genres, and I'll tell you what, they pulled it off. Because I'm not going to be the first one to go on impressions. I'm going to go last today, so you'll hear what I have to say. I'm going to throw it to Benny first. I want to hear what you have to say about this movie, my man.
We're just talking about just like the movie in general. We're not
First
talking about
impressions,
specifics
yep.
or anything. Okay.
Yep.
So when I first saw the movie, I was young when I first saw the movie. I had to be around like, honestly, probably around 12. The first time I ever saw it, I was freaking out because of everything, like all the different style. Like it wasn't just like about what was going on in the movie. It was just like everything was like kind of leading up, like the different events that happened that kind of led up to certain like bigger events, which we'll get into more detail and stuff like when we start talking about it. But it freaked me the heck out. And then when I watched it again, I think it had to be like last week. I watched it again, and it's just really cool the fact that like I didn't notice like little itty bitty like details when it comes to like where the alien was at that time and all these little things and stuff. It was just really cool that I just didn't notice that until now, and I was like, oh wow, this is really cool. I love it. So my first impression was that I was terrified by this movie. So yes.
So you saw it first when you were 12. When was the last time like you've seen the movie before recent times?
Probably it was either last year or the year before. I got my years all mixed up and stuff because of everything that's going on. So yes.
Pandemic kind of threw the timeline out of order. It's a little weird.
Just a little bit. Yeah.
I am now gonna go ahead and toss it over to Captain Britannia. Hit me with it.
So my overall opinion of the movie, right? So I'm on the right. Okay. Well, obviously, I'm the sort of the guy who doesn't really know what he's on about. But to sort of give it a brief overview, I suppose. I think they did a good job at just generally with just everything, right? They did a good job with sort of keeping the suspense, even before the characters sort of knew what was happening. Before the distress call was even sent out. The first time I watched it, I was like, I have no idea what's going on, but I still feel like suspense, right?
That's a shot. That's a shot right there. I don't have any idea what's going on.
Yeah. And just without getting into too much detail into it, I didn't really understand the bit at the end. I didn't like it very much. Just because it feels like it could have ended without the super suspense bit at the very end. But we'll get into that later, I'm sure.
Interesting. Okay, all right. Let's go ahead and throw it over to the movie fanatic. What's up, Jonathan? Tell me about this movie. I know, well, first, real quick, you said that this movie was a huge inspiration to you, so you can touch on that as well.
Okay. Yeah, so I mentioned in my introduction to myself in the last one that I am a writer, a screenwriter to be more specific. And one of the screenplays I started over the pandemic, this will lead into it being, obviously it's a positive impression if it's an inspiration. I was essentially taking this idea of Alien and combining it into a real world situation that was more of a period piece set in the 1600s, and wasn't an alien movie, but still very much this idea that there is something bad happening. We're not seeing this thing that's causing this problem, but when we do, people's minds are gonna like be like, oh, you people are gonna freak out. That was about the worst description of anything I could give you, but I'm being intentionally vague about my own writing. But
Of course.
so it was a huge influence because essentially I'm taking and adapting this similar idea, the archetype of this idea, into something else. But even before that, I saw it when I was a kid. I think I saw the first two. Truthfully, I think I saw the fourth one before I ever saw the third one.
Oh, wow.
Grew up watching Saturday night movies with my dad. Whether they were on TV on like this may not mean anything to a lot of people, but a Joe Bob Briggs like marathon type thing, or like or a video store rental. I'd seen the first two, and then I think it was 99 or 98 when the fourth one came out, and so I saw that on VHS to date myself a little bit. And I think that's probably why I never hated that movie. One, it's one of the most, we're not reviewing it, but one, it's the most like acclaimed French directors of all time making an American movie, and I think that's largely why I didn't translate. But I would say
That was
one,
for Resurrection?
Resurrection.
Yeah.
The first one, Ridley Scott, that's him at the top of his game. Blade Runner is one of my top 10 favorite movies of all time, which he also did.
Go see The Last Duel. Anyway, go on.
And so it made an impact on me. It showed me a side of horror that I hadn't seen before, and it's got some incredible set pieces that we'll dive into more specifically later. Because,
Yes, for sure.
because what's his name? Tom Skerritt gets in. He's in one of my favorite just sequences of all time. And so I would give Alien a rare 10 out of 10 in my book.
Ooh, hitting with the score right off the bat. I like it. Well, I guess I'll take over now. I mean, I love this movie. I have seen it an excessive amount of time since I first saw it. I saw it directly after watching The Shining. At the same place I told you guys, I think last week, I think I said this on air, is that last week or the week before, whatever, I don't know, time flies, whatever. I was watching The Shining in a different house than I currently am right now, where they have like this 4K super HD like TV with like surround sound system. And I watched Alien directly after I watched The Shining. And I'll tell you, man, it looked great. This came out in, what was it, 79? And this, obviously, I imagine has been remastered for sure, because I think similar to the way that Star Wars was done when it was first released, is that, like, with the spaceship models, you could see, like, the squares in space around it. I imagine that this movie had the same exact stuff going on with it when it first released, because I think it's filmed the same way with the models, because all the ships look really good because it looks like it's models. And so it's been like digitally touched up and remastered since then, and it looks really good. And man, I love the way this movie looked, the sets, the alien. Well, I want to talk about that really like in depth at some point today. But man, I love the look of the alien. I thought he was just terrifying. And again, for a 1979 movie, it was a practical costume, which is why it ages so well. I think it looked fantastic. And I really loved the suspense. Like, I think it was Odds that mentioned it, that there's, like, suspense before they even know what's going on. And the movie creates this, like, feeling of suspense just right out the gate. And it's like the first 30 minutes, like, they're going through, they're waking up from cryostasis, they're having a good time, they're talking. You get a little bit of personality from the crew, which I love the chemistry between some of these characters. And I think most of the acting performances are pretty good, especially standout Sigourney Weaver. She's fantastic in this movie, and we'll talk about that in depth. But I love the way this movie was structured, the way that they paced it, the music I thought was awesome, the sets, everything was very, very, very good to me. I mean, I guess there's nothing really stopping me from agreeing with you on the score, Jonathan. I just am so hesitant to give movies 10 out of 10s. But I think that this is probably definitely up there. Like, if not, like a 9.5 for me. Like, it's pretty.
I mean, in fairness, it's a 40-year-old movie, so there's not a lot of 10s between then and now. So
fair. I want to go ahead and I want to get into the score and the sound design first. So a little background for me personally is that after I watched this movie for the first time, I came and then I started playing on that sounded awful. I came onto stream and started playing Alien Isolation, and I played it was about, I think it was like 19 hours of Alien Isolation, and I basically lived in this world. And I know that's not this movie, but the fact that like it is a direct like continuation of the world and the ideas that Ridley Scott built in Alien, and all the sound effects from the movie, all the score, it all carries over to this game, and I have just been steeped in Alien this last week. And
Or is Xenomorphs like your worst enemy in your entire life now?
now, yeah. I'll tell you, man. That was a rough game. There's a real quick, like off-topic thing is that I played this and I was having a good time. It was definitely scary and extremely stressful. And I've played a lot of horror games, but this was definitely up there for like even more so than Outlast in my opinion, which is awful. Fantastic game, but just awful on the anxiety. And Alien is just something about the way, because the game translates a lot of stuff that Ridley Scott does in this movie, the framing of the alien, the way he comes down and like moves through the rooms and stuff, and it's so well done. But to translate back to the score and the sound design, I like to take notes during this, and sometimes I leave them very intentionally vague for laughs, and I have under score and sound design feels like space. And as basic as that sounds, I think it's pretty accurate. Like Jerry Goldsmith creates this exploratory like tune that's like, it feels like out of this world. It's like these deep space explorers is like I don't know how to describe it, but yeah.
I was actually trying to find words to describe it as well. In my head, I was sort of telling myself it sounds a bit like a detective's theme. Like, you know, and I was like, but that just feels weird. So like, because obviously it's not a detective's movie, is it? So I sort of felt like I needed to find a better word for it. But
I agree. I think it's hard to describe.
It sounds like you and I sort of had a bit of a similar issue there.
So that's why I said feels like space. And I think I don't know. Maybe Johnathan, you can help, and Benny, because I know you're super into the music side of things. Maybe you can help fill in the gaps here in my inept speech ability. That we can figure this out together. But I really just think feels like space really sums it up, because like I said, it's like this exploratory tune, like they're going through the vast depth of an unknown territory, finding unknown things, and I feel like the score does exactly that, and it sets that theme and that tension, because it's so subtle. It's not really like in your face or anything. And real quick to touch on the sound design, all the sounds of the ship, the vents closing, the little donka of like the things processing and stuff. All those like are so uniquely Alien, specific this movie, and I really thought it was a good job. I want to go ahead and toss it to Benny. Maybe you can help me.
Okay. Yeah, no. So I definitely agree. It's definitely a sound, like it's not even just a soundtrack. It's just like the whole entire like idea of the music and everything was really out of this world. When it comes to like the sound design and the Foley and everything, I promise you, I have seen so many movies, and like there's not been a movie that's been like, or that I shouldn't say that. There's been very few movies that have really kind of like hit it like on the head when it comes to like the Foley and everything. So like when it came to like the vents opening, closing, the doors opening, closing, things like that, just like any type of like mechanical sound and everything.
Real quick, I want you to explain Foley to the uninitiated.
Yes, sorry. Okay, so Foley would be any type of like sound design effect, whether it's like if you were outside, like it would be cars passing by, or any type of like, let's say I drop a pen or something. Yes, any natural sound that you can really hear, that's going to be Foley. So any like birds flapping their wings and stuff, that's going to be in the idea of Foley.
Because it's generated by sounds that are not those sounds, correct?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
Okay.
So, yes. So with that being said, yeah, Foley and everything, they they just like really hit it on the head, and that was like one of the first few movies that I like really truly noticed all that stuff, and I really loved it for that. But for the soundtrack itself, so for like The Shining and everything, it was basically the thing where it started to slowly build and build and build and build and build. But for like Alien, it's like it almost went from 0 to 100 really quick, and I really love that about it because it was just the fact that like it kind of like went with the whole entire storyline where it's like it was in a I shouldn't say it was peaceful to begin with, but it was just like really kind of laid back to begin with, and then it literally shit hits the fan quick. So it's just the same idea with the same music and everything. It's like, or with the music and everything, it literally hits the fan really quick, and it just keeps on going from that point. So I loved it. But yeah, no, I definitely would say it's in a sense kind of a polar opposite of The Shining when it comes to like the gradual build. It's more or less a immediate build. So that's how I think of it. But like when it comes to like the specific like name that I would give it, then, well, of course I would say like extraterrestrial. But
that's a good word. That's a good word.
The best one that I would say. But like, it's more or less just like, oh crap, what is it called? Because like it's not like it's adventurous or anything, but it's also not like it's just like.
I think curious
thing. Yes, thank you. That's actually a good way to think of it. So, it literally is like a thing where it's like, it really kind of piques people's interest and it really makes them curious and stuff. So yeah, that I would definitely say that would be curious.
I think that this may be the best way to phrase it in my head. I feel like the music kind of embodies this sounds hokey, but embodies like the human wish as like a race to explore. If that makes sense.
I like it. No, that makes a lot of sense.
It sounds a little hokey, a little corny, but I think that's honestly the best way to describe this, is that I think it does embody that human spirit of to naturally explore. And I think, I mean, you may not agree with me, but I think that that's just the only way that I can describe it in my head. Johnathan, you looks like you have a questioning look on your face.
Oh, no, I'm just listening to what you're saying and kind of looking out the window. But you know, all the times I've seen this movie, the only music that I can kind of hear, but I can't even replicate verbally, is the end credits, because it bleeds in so well with everything else. The sound design, which you started to talk about, is what stands out most to me, because when I think of the noises of Alien, there's two things I hear. I hear that like the chirping, the weird chirping stutter of that thing in a vent and it's getting ready to slowly lower itself down, and I hear in the background of every scene, and the occasional and like of the air compression coming from some place, and those are the noises that I think of when I think of the sound of Alien. And to play along with the pun or feed into it or whatever, I genuinely think that is what space would sound like. And
if it had music,
I think that burying the music in a way where it's just kind of a part of the experience, and it's not meant for you to necessarily say, oh, I love the score. No, the score is doing its job so well that I can't even think about a moment where I was like, oh, the score was great here, because it just didn't get in the way ever. It served its purpose by fueling the tension, but for the most part, it's the silence and the ambience that really stand out to me.
Yeah, I think that's a really good way to put it.
Fueling the environment that it's in as well, right?
Yeah.
Like you say, that's what space sounds like. So sort of like that's the environment that it's in, and it sort of helps promote that, I suppose.
It is very subtle. It is very subtle.
Yeah. Continue going real quick. This is not an ideal situation, but my computer literally just jumped like half a battery point down out of the blue, so I'm going to get my charger, but please plow forward. I will be right back.
So, Yeah, I think Johnathan put it like extremely well, way better than I think I could have put it myself. Is just that it does not get in the way. The score feels like it is layered right into the movie because when we talked about the Shining score was in your face. It was right there the entire time. It was building the suspense. It was like da na 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 na. It was just building the entire time. But with Alien, it's just like it's a part of everything that they're experiencing. I think that's such a good way to put it. That man, it's definitely way better than I could have worded because that's spot on. Is that it does not get in the way. I really like that, and I think that about sums it up for me on the score. It is so subtle that there's really honestly not too much to talk about. Like it does its job. It is very well done, and yeah. So, do you have any other closing statements on that?
No, I think it's right. I think especially with The Shining, one of my points with the score was how it just sort of felt unnecessarily over the top at times. And so with this, I definitely preferred it sort of just doing its thing. And
Yes.
that obviously that worked out very well for it. I think.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Did anyone else see that? Anyway, that was a nice move you pulled there at the last slightly off screen.
Man.
Yeah. I wanted to go ahead and switch gears a little bit and start talking about the set. And not just the set, but the setting in general. We touched a bit on it when we talked about the score. The fact that this is in space, it is on the space shuttle Nostromo. I think is what they refer to. I know it's Nostromo, but I don't know.
Refinery.
Say again?
It's a giant ore refinery.
Okay. There you go. All right. Yeah. So Nostromo is where is the ore refinery Nostromo. And I think that again, this is I'm gonna say this so many times that the fact this was in 1979, and they made these sets that I thought were just. And again, maybe it has something to do with the fact that I spent so much time in this world with Alien Isolation as well. But man, I love these sets in this movie, from like the cryo chamber to the design of the alien ship on the planet that they're drawn to I think this might have been where you were going earlier, Johnathan, is the maybe the mother chamber that you maybe were talking about. I don't know if that was your big set piece that you said was really cool. No, you talk. Okay. That was one of my favorites personally. Is when Dallas goes into the mother chamber with all those blinking lights and he converses with the AI. I think that set is so cool that it's just, and it's again very simple, but like it's got all these dials, so it looks super sophisticated. To the vents, to the med bay, all the things, but. Since you, Johnathan, said something specific about the set piece, I want to go ahead and give you the floor straight off. So, go ahead, talk to me.
I'm gonna start with not my favorite, and I don't mean that and as in this one is bad. I mean that I'll talk about the one I was referring to second, because it's contrast. It's a huge contrast. The scene where they discovered what we later learned to be called an engineer.
Future spoilers.
For the first time, brilliant set, a wonderful H.R. Geiger design, just a brilliant thing, a beautiful thing to look at. And then when they go, you're uptight and you see this giant, almost human thing that looks like a pilot with a mask, and you know, in 1979 we had no idea what that meant to Ridley Scott. And it's just a cool thing to look at. They make a few comments about it, and then they continue forward into the ship. That is one of the more striking images for me, but the set piece aside from that stands out because it really drives home the horror is when Dallas is traveling through the vents. That entire sequence for me is the true meaning of what people refer to when they referred to as the terror in space or whatever, because he's in there. I don't necessarily remember the sound. I remember vents having to open, so I do remember the kind of and that, but he's traveling through this thing, and part of that scene, it's not even seeing him in the vent. It's watching their little reader and seeing the
Uh-huh.
dots move on the reader, and it's yeah, and it's building tension, especially if you've played Isolation, then you know that tension on a whole different level.
Oh God.
Because that little fucking dot will go beep 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 beep, beep, and you're just
I'm getting anxiety
"No!"
right now from it.
And so like that very much that scene lives and breathes on both the claustrophobia. You already feel like a little claustrophobic because it takes place on these narrow corridors inside of
Yeah.
a giant ore refinery that's traveling through space. And it's a small cast, so there's this isolation, no pun intended, that's kind of taking place. But then he goes into like an even smaller space, and for like 5 to 10 minutes, he's crawling through this thing, and you're just like, "Oh God, please don't fucking run into that thing! Please don't run into that thing!" And we all know how that ultimately pans out for Dallas. But that to me, as simple as it is, because I'm sure that that's probably one of their easiest sets to build, were those vents for him to climb
Yeah.
through. But for me, that's really what sells the movie, because I think of the corridors and I'm like, I can hide here, I can run here, all this stuff. But in an event, I can either go forward or backwards, and I can't move fast. And so it's just terrifying to me, and in a stark contrast to the engineer room on the spaceship
Which
that
is
is
huge.
vast and humongous.
Yeah. Okay, I got you. Yeah, those vents definitely are very effective in the way that they convey this horror of Dallas being stuck in this such a small space, and yeah, the motion sensor being like boop 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 boop. Boop, boop,
Yeah.
boop, 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 boop. Oh God, dude, it definitely is so well done, and it's again so freaking simple. Odds and I literally just finished watching that particular, well, because we watched the movie just before we did this. But something funny is that the way that the alien shows up in that scene, me and Odds were like in a text chat while we were doing this, and he shows up and he's like, and Odds is like peekaboo. And then me, because we're both very, very dumb, I'm like, it's like, give me a huggy. And it's just, I swear, guys, that it obviously is very terrifying. Like, it is scary. But the fact that it's just the hand motions is, I just find it too funny. And that's just me. That's my like personal sense of fucked up humor. But I thought that was pretty funny. But obviously, overall, very terrifying. But again, just my fucked up sense of humor.
It's one of them things where, like, if you were in that situation, I'm sure you'd find it terrifying.
Yeah.
But all I see is an alien who just wants a hug, you know. Like,
Exactly. And it was the hands. It was the hands. Like, come on. He was like, yeah. But no, I to touch on that, as funny as it looks, the alien is, because this we'll go ahead and throw this into the set because he is kind of part of this whole thing. And I think that the way that they designed this alien is just so freaking cool, man. Like, obviously we've got it in the background here on the podcast. But I don't, it's just, I don't know how to describe it. It just looks, it does look terrifying, and it looks like an apex predator. I think it has a combination between the teeth and this very elongated head, and this tail. This long ass tail that he can use as like an extra appendage, I think is just, I don't know where they came up with the idea. I don't know where they thought of this, like whose idea to design this alien was, but they nailed it. I think they nailed it.
H.R. Geiger. Are you familiar with H.R. Geiger? I mentioned him a minute ago.
No.
If you literally just Google search H.R. first, that's what am I trying to say? H.R.H. Last name Geiger, Giger, I think. You'll immediately see, and like his art was the inspiration. And I believe he eventually ended up doing the concept drawings for the alien in the movie, as well as the engineers.
Thank you for that. Because I definitely did not notice that when I was doing my homework. Apparently, I did not do it very well. I'm sorry, guys. But yeah, I thought it was very, very well done, and I cannot Google it right now as a risk of destroying the podcast. So we're gonna go ahead and keep on moving through that. Odds. I want to go ahead and give you the floor to talk about what you thought about this set.
Yo, let me bring up my notepad.
And Benny.
Well, Um. Well, fuck. Is there a way to zoom in? Hold on. Oh, there is. Oh, this is revolutionary. Okay, right. Well, I think right. The main point that I sort of
Nice, nice, nice.
have, which isn't even necessarily set, but it is sort of at the same time, is everything looks very futuristic, right? Even like in this day, back then, right? If that makes sense, probably not.
Mm-hmm.
Because in the mother room, one take that I sort of had with all of the blinking lights and stuff, right, is that sort of I sort of thought to myself, that's a lot of blinking lights, right? And what would every single one of those like indicate? And I think it is sort of suggested to some degree that Mother has some form of like hyper intelligence or like self consciousness, right? Is the word I'm trying. And so I was like, why are there that many lights? But then the second time I watched it, I saw it and I was like, that is it's probably some form of brain working, right? Like brain going at play, and
It's,
so
it's
like,
just a supercomputer. So yeah.
yeah, no, exactly. But to move on from that, obviously, the planet when they go outside is absolutely incredible. And obviously it is quite dark, and I'm assuming that's they probably made it quite dark, because if they made it light, a lot of
Flaws would show.
a lot of flaws would probably be shown. However, I still think that obviously I saw it and I was like, yeah, you know, I'm sure if it was lighter, we could see a bunch of things they messed up on, but it still looked like a very realistic planet. Then when they reached the alien spaceship, it looked. I don't know. It did just look like some like other planet, right? And obviously, it's probably not like a planet. It's probably like a dwarf planet or a moon or something. But it looked absolutely incredible. And
Do you mean the spaceship?
Yeah, the spaceship that the alien went there. You know?
Yeah. So I think what that is, obviously, Jonathan might know more about that, considering he's already seen the prequels, which do, I believe, address that whole thing in some form or another. It is a spaceship that has it looks like it's crash landed there. It does seem to be very, very like a large ship itself, because they show us this like this thing where it's like poking out this way, and then obviously they get in there and they go down and it opens up. So I think it's either like partially buried or by the like the because it looks very windy on that planet. Like there's always a bunch of like debris flowing and everything. So it looks to me like it got buried in whatever particles and stuff that they have there. And that's why they lose contact with the team as they go through there, because they end up going underground. At least that's in my opinion.
But speaking of which, as well, actually, the idea of like scenes going by, and like obviously it's like a dark spaceship, which is dusty and sort of like whatever. So like it's sort of to be expected. But when you sort of get shown around the ship and like every room sort of looks different. Like one thing I'll always see in movies is like you know, you'll sort of see the same rooms again and again, and you'll sort of be like, yeah, this is one set, this is another, this is another. But when they sort of when they keep on showing you different rooms and stuff, and it sort of makes it more believable. If that makes sense. Like it feels more realistic in the way that there are more rooms because it's real life, and you know, there are always going to be more rooms, and that's just how ships work, I guess, and buildings and stuff.
I mean, you're not wrong. You're not wrong.
I was going to say buildings, but there aren't really any buildings in this movie.
Benny, what was your favorite set piece?
Oh
yeah.
So that's tough, because like there are, I would say, two that are probably like my favorites. So I'll just say my two favorites. I'll do that. So of course I would say like I would say a dwarf planet and everything. Not the dwarf planet, the alien planet. There we go. Say it again.
Yeah.
Alien planet and everything. Just like the whole entire, like, I love how everything just looked there. It just looked like it would be some sort of an actual alien planet. It didn't look like it was just going to be like some
It looks
I don't know.
scary.
It didn't look like it would be. Yeah, it looked like it would be terrifying. Not gonna lie, terrifying. But yeah, so that was definitely one of my favorite places because I don't know. It just like every single little detail about it, like the rocks over there, like literally every single detail, like they literally thought it out and like they really truly got into detail with that. That's one. But I would say my absolute favorite would be the mother room. Like I promise you, I promise you, I literally like I just didn't even realize it the first few times I ever saw it. I didn't really realize like how many like what all was going on inside that room until I saw it last week, or I think today's Tuesday.
You definitely you notice more as you go through and watch it again, especially in adult life.
But it was just the fact that like when I watched it the first time, I was just like, okay, cool, yeah, it's a really big room with a lot of things and whatever. But like, I didn't realize how detailed it truly was until I watched it again this week or this past week and everything, and I noticed like all the different little lights, all the different little blinking lights, all the different like every single thing that was there. It looked like all the little doodads and everything. They were all like really kind of like shown, and they were really kind of like what's the word I'm looking for? Like they were really kind of like they were really thought through. There we go. They were really like thought through in every single aspect of that room. So it was really cool. That's what I would say my favorite set piece was, probably that whole room itself.
Okay.
So yeah.
Johnathan, I looked up the I got it on my phone on LTE with 1 bar somehow. I see this this artwork that he's got there. And now, was this him commissioned for Alien, or is this a piece of art that Geiger made beforehand?
That much I can't remember because I'm split in half, and one half wants to say that like he created this creature before. Yeah, it hurts. And the other is like, no, he did it after. So it could be a combo of both, where he like did one, they saw it, and they were like, hey, let's get this guy to design everything, and then afterwards he was like, I need to do more xenomorph pieces.
Which we don't even know. We don't know it's officially a xenomorph until the sequel, I believe, is when that name is dropped.
Yeah, they probably didn't have a name for it in 1979.
Yeah, I imagine. But yeah, no, I thought what's so well done about this movie is the fact that Ridley Scott decided to go with practical sets. I don't think he had much of a choice back then anyway, but the fact that he did practical sets and practical effects and everything makes this movie hold up. Because you get these problems with even future movies in this franchise where the CG, they start using these computer-generated special effects, and it does not hold up because the technology is so consistently and rapidly developing as the years go on that this year it may look amazing, the next year it looks like dog shit, which is unfortunate. But it's just the way that it goes, and the fact that he used all these practical effects makes it stand it hasn't aged too poorly. I think there is only one, I think, bad cut in this entire movie that I think they could have done better. And that is the Ash scene. When they find out that Ash, spoilers.
With his head on the table?
Yes, I think that that is the one bad cut in this entire movie.
It's so funny, dude.
It is funny. It is funny.
Clear that they think that it's the same exact shot, and they didn't have another one to go. Somebody got reamed for that, I'm sure.
Because it was so close.
Here's a fake head, and then somebody nudged the camera and cut back to the real head, and you see the camera move, and it's like, come on,
dude. They were literally like inches away from being able to cover the entire head with Ripley's arm, and they fucked it up. It's like you see the shot change. You see his head change from the stationary prop to actually Ian Holm. Oh, that's his name, right? Ian Holm, yeah. And it's just it's so
or Bilbo, whichever.
Yeah, I was gonna get to that. Don't worry. It's so fucking hilarious to me that they were just so close to greatness. Like it almost like I think all of the sets and all these cuts and these edits were really, really well done, except for that one. Because they almost had the whole head covered. But it's just a little sliver where you see the lighting change, you see the texture change, you see the entire shot change. and it's just it makes me sad because they almost nailed it. They almost nailed it, and that's why it's a 9.5 out of 10. Podcast over.
Oh. I actually have that scene up right now. I'm curious. I'm going to put my closed captions on to see what they say.
I wish I could
I'm
show it to
curious
people.
what Ridley Scott says here.
Oh yeah, please listen to that while I tell them a little bit.
Yeah, keep doing your thing.
I'm gonna
see
give
this.
you guys a little fun fact about the whole scene where Ash is finally revealed to be a synthetic. He is an android, and that reveals so much about his character throughout the entire movie because he's a dickhead, and you don't
He's an
know really
arsehole,
you
yeah.
don't really know why. You don't like get it. He seems like this like it starts off and he seems like this kind of like shy guy. He's very small in stature, and we'll get to other reasons why that has worked for his career. But he's just like he's very small in general, just like his personality as a guy, and it just seems like he's such a dickhead. And you don't really get it until it's finally revealed that he is an android and he is set on a very specific mission. And that's why, because every single action, and looking back on the movie the second time after seeing it the first time, understanding what Ash's mission is, it is very well done. Like, you see all these little things that Ash is doing throughout the entire movie. Like, from the very beginning, where it looks like he's got this ulterior motive. He's doing these things that you don't understand why. He's saying these things that work to his angle, but aren't overtly, obviously going against the crew for the most part, until he breaks. And I'm very impressed with the way that his whole character was directed and made to showcase this kind of like what's going on with this guy. There's something weird's up with him. Is he just a dick, or is he?
Yeah, I never even like the first time I watched it, I just assumed that he was some sort of scientific obsessed guy, you know, like I never actually expected him to be a bad guy. I just thought he cared more about finding out what this thing was than, I suppose, you know, the life of his life or the life of anyone else. But I never thought he was actually going to be an android who actually cared more about science than his life or the life of anyone else.
And it comes down to his programming at that point, is that he was literally programmed to do this thing.
It's a lot like Vision and Marvel, right? Oh, sorry, no. It's a lot like Ultron and Marvel.
Yeah, I got you.
Right. But we won't get into that. That's a different franchise.
Jonathan, do you have anything to report?
No, they actually don't mention it. They just kind of talk about.
Of course they don't. Why would they? It's their dark horse.
They just kind of talk about the materials they used in the scene.
And
so,
I'm
like,
about to talk about it. Yeah.
Yeah, oh yeah.
It's like marbles and tubes.
Yeah. So this is a fun fact. Ash's insides were made from milk, caviar, pasta, and marbles. And the reason that this is a fun fact is that Ian Holm absolutely hates milk. He hates it so much, and here he is probably having to do so many takes with this milk sputtering out of his mouth and just all over him and in his
when I said he needs some milk, I didn't.
It was milk. Yeah, it was milk.
I didn't actually think it was milk. Well, I don't know what I thought it was, I guess.
Oh, you knew exactly what you thought it was.
I actually thought it was going to be some sort of like dairy cream type stuff. Like it looked too. Well, I thought it looked too thick to be milk.
Ash lives on half and half. That's fucking hilarious.
I think it's so funny that Ian Holm hates milk and they did that to him. It's just it rings back to Jack Nicholson eating cheese sandwiches for The Shining.
Yeah.
But Benny, I want to make sure you're getting involved in the conversation, man. Feel free to just jump in whenever you need to, whenever you want to. But like the fact that like what did you think the first time that you were watching this movie and you were watching Ash do his thing? Like, what do you think about his character and then the eventual turn?
Okay, so when I first saw the movie, all I remember was thinking like, I hate this guy. I hate him. And then all
little
of a sudden,
12-year-old Benny, I hate this guy.
I was like, what? That makes sense. That's what my mind was thinking at that moment. But then, yeah, like watching it the second time, like what? I don't remember which one of you said that, but like watching it the second time, I was like, how come I didn't realize that before? I didn't
Mhm.
I did not think of any of the different little cues and everything that I could have like really used to
We're
figure
gonna
that out.
transition
But
into
not to figure out
acting
that stuff.
right now as we go on to this because this is perfect
But
little segue.
oh
Continue
yeah,
though about Ian Holm.
but with that, oh yeah, but with that though, it's just the fact that like he really played it really well. But I'll explain that a little bit more in detail in a second. But it was just like the fact that it really was like a, oh yeah, he really cares about science. He really is like that one that does not care about literally anybody else, but he only cares about science and he only cares about the alien and like the whole entire idea with that. It was just crazy to me when he was like when we found out that he was not a human. We're like, oh,
And I want to
I
talk about that a
guess
little
that
bit.
works. Yeah.
So, discussion time, like theories and everything. So, was he breaking? Like, because you see when the moment that he starts assaulting Ripley, you see the fluid, like the synthetic fluid, dripping down from his skull. Now, I imagine that happened when Ripley smashed him into the mother wall or something like that. But it broke him and he just started going absolutely insane. Jonathan, do you have any like input on that?
I assumed he was broken.
He just breaks, yeah.
Yeah, I think that he's damn. I mean, they knock his head off of his shoulders, but I think at that point, like his processing is just fucked. He's not getting milk to the CPU anymore, and so he's just like.
I feel like that's a pretty fragile machine if it breaks after being slammed up against a wall, though.
But
Yeah.
it's an android, so it's meant to be as human-like as possible.
Yeah.
Apparently, that's down to the fact that, if you hit me in the head with a fire hydrant, there's a chance that you break me.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I mean, there you go. Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
Oh,
I thought Ian Holm. What I was gonna say is famously Bilbo Baggins. We've got him out here spitting milk out. His guts are made of fish eggs and pasta. He's got marbles lining his insides, and he's hating every single second of his existence. Feel bad for Ian Holm, but he does a really great job in this movie because there are these little nuances as you go through the movie, and you see him like, especially during the dinner scene right after Kane is brought back to the ship and recovers, where he seems like he's fine now. He doesn't remember what happened. And they're all sitting there eating dinner and they're talking, they're having a good time. And it cuts to Ash and you just see Ash and he's just like, he's looking at Kane so specifically, like intently. And you're like, what's he doing there? And then Kane starts to choke and cough and it's like, and then Ash gets up. He's like, this is serious. And he starts going over there. And I want to transition right into another fun fact here is that Kane, played by John Hurt, famously the missing doctor as well from Doctor Who. He was him and Ridley Scott were the only people that knew what was going to happen during that scene. Nobody else knew that thing was going to burst out of his chest. They knew something was going to happen, and they didn't know what. And that practical effect happened and started spraying blood everywhere. And none of the cast knew, so those reactions that you see in the movie are genuine because they had no idea that was coming. And I think that's fucking awesome. I think doing stuff like that, while it's a little fucked up because that scene is crazy. It's when directors do stuff like that, I think it plays so well on film because it's very genuine. You can have actors acting all day long, but when they're actually reacting to something that is genuine and real, it shows. And their disgust and surprise in that scene is just incredible. And I really, 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 really loved it. And another fun fact is that Yaphet Kotto went into his trailer and refused to talk to anyone for a couple hours after that scene because he, again, did not know that was coming. And we have been redeemed to hydrate, so everybody take a drink. Cheers.
Oh yes, of my water. Let me go get drunk.
Gone.
But yeah,
Another bit of a fun fact. I don't know if this is
hit it.
in the same chest burst scene, but apparently, excuse me. Apparently, there were some actors who actually passed out on set whilst filming was happening. Like they
Yep.
actually passed out because obviously, like you say, they didn't know what was going to happen. And obviously, it's very like if you're actually there and you don't know what's going to happen, and then it happens.
So I'm gonna clarify
It's
on
very...
that. The reason the passing out occurred was the spacesuits. So
Okay.
Ridley Scott, especially so specifically Lambert, Dallas, and Kane, and I guess probably Ripley at that point too, because she does eventually have a spacesuit on as well. I think what happened is that they were in these suits, which are again very practical. And can we just touch real quick on the suits? The layering and design of the suits is to me so reminiscent of samurai armor. The fact that they have this like the plating on their chest and their sides that is like these layers of bam, bam, bam. It's 3 layers of armor down the side and 3 layers of armor down the front and on both shoulders, and it looks very reminiscent to like old samurai armor pieces that did the exact same thing with their shoulder guards. I don't know if that was a intentional thing by Ridley Scott, but I thought it looked very, very cool, and I am a massive fan of the Japanese culture, and seeing that was really, really cool to me. And I first noticed it in the game because the spacesuits carry over, but obviously they are the same in the movie, and I thought that was very cool. I don't know if any of you guys noticed that, but
Yeah, I didn't notice that too.
No, I definitely noticed that because that was like one of the first things I saw. I was like, "Whoa!" I was like, "I've never seen anything like that. That's actually really cool."
Yeah, the spacesuit's different than most others.
Yeah, I would assume it would be a thing where like not for necessarily for like extra protection or anything, but I would assume that like they're still trying to make it more like futuristic type of like style and everything, so that they're trying to like really kind of like emphasize that point. That's what I would assume that they're trying to do with that and everything. But yeah, no, I loved seeing that. I was like, oh wow, I actually really like that. So that's why like for Halloween, I literally went and got myself like I literally made one myself. It was the
Really?
it was so nice. I loved it. I cannot fit that anymore, but I loved it.
You made a
So,
spacesuit
yeah, it was
based
really cool.
based on this movie?
Yes,
Oh,
because
that's
like I
awesome,
literally
man.
I had my whole entire like I had my what is it called, the samurai like outfit. I'm trying to think of
The armor
specific name.
plating?
Yes,
Or
I had the actual the. It'll come back to me in a little bit, but I literally had the armor like plating as well, but like I had everything with that. But then I also had like some of the stuff from my like Michelin man that I had before, and I kind of like went with that and kind of put it together. It was really cool. I loved it. It was really cool.
That probably worked actually. Wow.
It
Wow,
worked really well.
that's impressive, Benny. That's very creative of
Oh
you.
yeah. I was very young. I think I was like 13. I was like, I'm gonna do it. That was the funniest thing. I loved it.
One of the things that I wrote down to go back to Ian Holm, because we will talk about the other actors, but just because we were already talking about Ash, is that the entire, like we were talking, I say, because I wrote notes obviously on my phone, is that Ash is just subtly moving the entire operation along, and you don't even know it the first watch through. Like you see, because he's saying things like, no, don't be too hasty. If we take it off, then it might kill him. We don't know. And he's doing all these little things where it's like, fuck, he's right, but you're shady, man. You're shady. And especially opening the bay doors to let them in, completely disregarding the quarantine process. The scene where Ripley is interrogating him, being like, hey, any new status on our friend there? And I really love the way that scene in particular, when Ripley is talking to Ash about Kane and the face hugger. I really love the way that scene is like framed, because for the most part you don't see Ripley's face. It's just Ash, and Ripley is like right off screen when he's looking through the microscope and everything. And you don't really see Ripley for the most part, and it looks like it's just Ash is the one who's like under this microscope by Ripley. And the way that the cinematography is in that scene is that it's like it's focusing in on him. And it's just like he's the one who's being looked at, who's being judged, because Ripley sees that something's going on. I think she understands that something's not completely right. You broke quarantine. You disobeyed the rules. I'm actually the one in command when those people are off the ship. And it's like it's this very cool little moment where it's like she's got him under a microscope, and I really, really like that. So yeah. Want to go ahead and let's see what else I had here. I wrote a couple notes about the face hugger prop, which I thought was really cool, with the tail wrapping around Kane's neck when they tried to remove it. And
one thing that I really liked about
hit
the
me with it.
characters was the two goofy sort of engineers, right?
Parker
Obviously
and
they-
Brett, yes.
Yes. Parker being my favorite character.
Yeah,
Right?
Yaphet
I
Kotto.
think he's the well.
He's
Excuse
the,
me.
and I wrote this down earlier, and he has such a fucking badass line near the end of the movie where he's like, I'm not about drawing straws, I'm for killing that goddamn thing right now.
Yeah.
And that shit is so badass. I love that, dude. It was so cool, so cool.
But how they sort of slowly changed from goofy, give me more money for this job, to sort of badass, like really sort of felt like they were in control of the entire situation. I suppose maybe not the other guy because he sort of died first, but the guy, the Parker,
Mm-hmm.
the one. He's he just seemed so fucking he seemed so ready to just go Rambo on this fucking alien.
And I love it. I love it.
It was amazing, yeah. And the sort of, I can't remember if he talked about this in the Shining podcast as well, but there's sort of a line between. No, I don't think we did actually, but there's like the line between bravery and stupidity, right? And I feel like there were quite a few times where it was quite difficult to sort of differentiate which one of those was sort of like being used in the situation that they were in. Like even the first time when I watched it, when the guy was like, when the egg opened up and the guy sort of had a closer look at it, I was just like, what are you doing?
You gotta think, you gotta put yourself in those shoes where you're a space explorer and your job is to find these things and explore these things, and you are really a scientist to get right down to it, where you
see,
gotta
the
be like,
thing is,
this is
I
an
would never
organism,
get
this
that
is
job.
life. It's life, like it's other life, you know what I mean? So he's gotta look at it.
Well, that's one of the. Go ahead.
Never sign up for that. I would literally just say, motherfuckers, pull me up, get someone else to do this.
That's one of the things, like, people. I'll tie it in because it's a very specific instance, but the facehugger thing is one of the reasons people didn't like Prometheus, the prequel, because they do the exact same thing where they and keep in mind this movie takes place probably more than 100 years before Alien. I can't exactly remember.
I think it was like a lot. Like I think it was like maybe 600 years before Alien.
Yeah,
it takes us
a long time before, and so it's their first time seeing them. And so I don't know if people were like, didn't they see Alien and know that was going to happen? Like Prometheus was the very first time that anybody saw those things, and what happens is everybody dies. So nobody can report to the Nostromo, like, hey, if you guys land on a planet and you see these things that look like fleshy lava lamps, they're not. Get the fuck out of there. Nobody was able to tell them that. And so they're like, well, the weird guy on I want to say plane, the weird guy on the ship, he said that it's our job to explore, so I better check this thing out. And like, nobody is thinking to themselves, there's flesh eating, there's just hungry aliens here, until all of a sudden that thing is like, give me a hug. And
And I want
out with like, oh.
To go off of that, another badass line is, it's not an SOS, it's a warning. And then Ash comes back and hits her with, well, why would you go out there? By the time you get there, they'll know whether or not it's a warning. And God, man, like these two, I think these two are the best in this movie. Sigourney Weaver, we haven't really talked about her, and we're going to, but I think her and Ian Holm are the stars of this movie. Realistically, I think they are the shining like actors in this movie. I think everyone else is good for the most part. Yeah, I think they're not bad at all, but I think with the way that the story is written, with the way that with what these actors are given for these characters, I think that these two are the stars. Obviously, Tom Skerritt is amazing as Dallas, and then you've got the engineers and then Lambert Lambert, unfortunately, is probably my least favorite character. I think I get her character and everything, but I think she's the reason why Parker is dead, because she froze in fear. Understandably, we'll say that she just froze in fear, and he was trying not to burn her with the flamethrower when the alien came down. And I get it, but like, come on. And you can argue with me, hit it.
I think there's notoriously, if I remember correctly, there's like notoriously some thing where she was well aware that she was just about everybody's least favorite character.
Really?
Yeah, and I don't want to put words or energy into a situation that didn't exist, but like, I feel like it was a point of contention for her for a while, if I remember correctly. I could be making this all up, but deeper research might help. But there was some sort of drama with her. Not that she was causing drama. That wasn't it. It was this like post-production. People have seen the movie and they're all like, "What's the deal with her character?" type thing. And unfortunately, like, I kind of agree. The character didn't necessarily narratively add anything. They used her as cannon fodder, essentially. It was like, hey, we need another person here to kill, and so she happened to be that person. And then
I'm glad I'm not out of this by myself then.
No. Then they kind of like, Ripley is the hero, so like clearly
Of course.
it's a woman thing. It felt very like regressive when it was like but this other one, she's gonna be the one that just freezes and has no fucking clue what she should do, and it's gonna cost the life of this other character, and so she's just
that pissed me off.
The
dude,
weapons, like, yeah.
And I'm sure you probably feel the same way, Odds. I don't know if you like got that same sort of feeling that like she was the reason why, because I know you said Parker was probably your favorite character.
Yeah, I feel like, to be honest, I more sympathize with her, to be honest. I feel like if I was in Parker's situation and I would just burn the alien and her, because she just wasn't moving out of the way.
I get it.
I could because at the end of the day, it is my life, and she's sort of putting my life at risk by not moving.
It's sad.
But I completely understand. You've got this big fucking monstrosity in front of you, and someone's just shouting. Someone's getting angry at you, and they're shouting at you to run, and you're just there like, I just want to die.
And then it's like, you think the way they frame that shot, you think that the alien's gonna take Lambert, and it's like, no, he spins around and gets Parker first. And it's like, God damn it! Because man, he's so good in this movie. But I want to talk about Sigourney Weaver in this movie because she is fantastic. And again, I watched this movie recently an excessive amount of times. So like, I just again watched it with Odds earlier today, and I was paying attention to the way that she walks around, to the way that she carries herself, and she's got this confidence, this presence on camera that's so impressive. And fun fact, Ripley was originally written as a male character. They said that all of the characters were unisex, pretty much except for Ripley. That they thought was a male character, and then they decided that Ridley Scott decided that casting a female would be more interesting for the story, and I'm glad they did it because Sigourney Weaver kicks ass in this movie. She is a fantastic actress, and she in my opinion, outshines everybody. And I don't know if this was her first like big movie, because I know obviously she's extremely famous now. But she was absolutely incredible in this movie. Like I was saying, the way that there's this moment near the end where she's looking for Jones, and she climbs out of this ladder, and she's in this area looking for him. And the way that she's just standing there, it's like she seems to be confident in such a scary situation, and it's so impressive. Because it's hard to pull that gravitas off on camera. And she does it so well. And just besides the confidence, her delivery on most scenes was incredible. Like all of her choices were interesting. When she had the people locked outside, she pauses when she's like trying to figure out, Ash, you know that's breaking quarantine, and if you were in the same situation, you'd do the same thing. and she's taking these pauses and actually thinking about the situation, and you can see it on her face. I think going back to the cinematography on this movie real quick is that these shots, these close-ups, specifically on Ripley, because there's a lot of them. There are a lot of shots where it's right up in her face, and the framing is like this, and you're just seeing Ripley and Sigourney Weaver's like facial expressions, and you can see these thought processes going on in her head, and it's just, in my opinion, I think it's really well done, and I think she's obvious. She is the star, but I think she is the star when it comes to the acting in this movie.
Yeah, it is one of her earliest roles. I brought up IMDb very quickly. She did a TV series, some filmed stage version of Annie Hall, and then she did another mini-series. Then it looks like a movie called Madman that I've never heard of, and then she did Alien. So Alien was really her second theatrical
And her big break, probably.
thing. Yeah, and then to her credit, just within the next 5 years, she ended up doing Ghostbusters, which is another legendary piece of cinema.
Oh man, we need to do a Ghostbusters like review thing. But anyway, going forward, because I love those movies. That movie specifically, though, the first one. The other ones, you know, it is what it is. But
I feel
that universe I love. But anyway, but yeah, I mean, thoughts, guys. Obviously, I've heard from Johnathan, but hit me with like talk to me about what you thought about the acting.
So yeah, well, what you were saying about really like, I swear, I promise you, every single time that you would see like any close up on her face and everything, you would literally see, like you said, the facial expression. It was just the fact that like she really truly kind of made it feel like she was like living in that moment. Like not only like, of course, doing really good acting and everything, but like it seemed like when she was supposed to be terrified in the movie, she was terrified. When she was supposed to be like brave in the movie,
the ending,
brave. Like it literally. Oh my gosh!
You
yes,
are
like literally.
my lucky star. Oh my god!
Like, literally, oh my gosh!
Dude,
It's my heart every time.
See, I'm gonna. Obviously we'll have different points of contention odds, but I have to disagree with you on the end. I thought the end was fantastic, and I know is this extra little thing that they added on it. And the reason I think it was fantastic is because of Sigourney Weaver. We get some unnecessary shots in there. With
you spell out specifically the moment you're talking about, and I obviously, if you're watching / listening to this, be aware that we were spoiling everything. So could you talk about the specific moment you're talking about? Because I was wondering what that was when you mentioned it earlier.
The ending, from what he said.
I think.
Yeah. Which part of the ending?
Well, just the bit where like she gets into the escape shuttle, she flies off, the main ship blows up, and the idea that the alien could have just died in the main ship, but he's actually in the escape shuttle. I don't necessarily. If I said it was bad, then sorry, my bad. But I don't necessarily think
you can stand by it, man.
I generally don't. I just think it's unnecessary. Is what I think.
Okay.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Corey.
Yes,
but it is necessary given the next movie, right? Like it plays into the next movie.
That's what I was wondering. I think I asked Tyler this, or did I not?
No,
that's directly that's directly about this movie. So that's why I'm asking, because like I don't want someone. Obviously, he said he didn't think it was bad, but I wouldn't want someone to think that like there was something like rubbish about what they did if like there's a purpose for it. The audience, obviously in 1979, may have felt the same way that Odds did. They could have been like, "Why'd they tack this on here? Cool, I guess, but like, why?" But yeah, if I saw it in 1979 and didn't know that there was a sequel coming, then I probably would be like, "Oh, there's two endings to this movie."
It is definitely important for the sequel. We won't go into it super like in depth.
Yeah,
but,
if it's important to the sequel, then I just take everything that I just said back. But like, in a movie by itself, because obviously when they first made the movie, obviously I'm sure they didn't have a sequel planned.
Maybe I can't confirm that, but it's possible.
I'm wondering.
But if they
get on it, Johnathan,
then their plan was to just do it, and you know.
But here's the thing. Here's the thing why I disagree, and that's okay. We can disagree, which is fine. But the reason why is because I think it's this huge moment for Ripley. Obviously, they could have had the showdown on the ship, but the way that I think they maybe wrote themselves into a corner with that idea, having the showdown between Ripley and the alien on the ship because of the self-destruct sequence. So I think maybe I can see where you're coming from with the fact that I think they probably did write themselves into a corner where they're like, we have to have the alien face off with Ripley. Like it's those are kind of the two main characters of this movie, and they need to have their showdown, and we can't have it like that because we've already had Ripley start the self-destruct, and she needs to get off the ship, and it's like it's all this rush, and then you don't see the alien for a little while until she gets on there, and then he's just like part of the piping, it looks like, which is really cool in my opinion. I think it's cool how his like big long head really just is literally one of the hoses that are on the ship. But I think what it comes down to is this final showdown between Ripley and the alien. And it's her moment to finally fight this thing because she hasn't really come into close quarters super crazily with it. It was around the corner, but they never actually like fought. And this is their meeting, their showdown. The alien's looking right at Ripley. She sees the alien, she sees the alien sees her, and they're
fall in love.
God damn it! and correct me if I'm wrong. Is this alien is like stuck in the ducts or something because he's not like immediately coming after her, which I thought was kind of funny.
I thought that it was just like, to be honest, I always thought it was sleeping, that it was asleep there because it just hunted down the entire crew, and now it was like, all right, I'm a living creature. I actually need to rest. And so it was sleeping there. That's another thing. I don't think they never talk about it, but I don't think the aliens have a gender. I think the xenomorphs are all asexual.
I think
I
that
just blew
is
my
correct.
own mind.
Yeah. I read somewhere that I thought that they were all female, but I looked into it again before the podcast started because I wanted to confirm it. And I think Ridley Scott sat down and confirmed it outside of an interview. It was never confirmed in a movie. And he said that it was like they're somewhere in between. So I think that's more so, yes, they are asexual. That they just, because obviously they lay the eggs, and then the face huggers come out, and then they do their thing and the life cycle repeats. Can we, real quick? I know we're rambling now, but I want to talk about the practical effects on the little alien that bursts out of his chest. Like that thing is like so. he's like Severus Snape gliding down the hallways of Hogwarts. He's like.
It happens in a later scene with the xenomorph too, because I always observe the little chest burster. He's just like, and
so
then
funny.
later on, the last viewing I did before this, like I noticed they do it with the alien just once. It's like they put the actor on a dolly, and then they just rolled him across the scene. And I was like, why did you guys do that? He could have walked. He
so
runs
funny.
and crawls. It's so silly, but you're absolutely. It's definitely worth noting because it's the funniest shit of all time. It just moves in a straight line.
And the noise it makes, but it's like it's terrifying and adorable at the same time because it's this little thing and he's got these teeth and he's just like he slides out of frame.
They do the same thing with E.T. in E.T. Like when they find E.T., he's like, wah! And he just like rolls across the bottom of the screen.
Oh my god. Oh, but yeah. To kind of bring that all back together, yeah. I really thought Sigourney Weaver was like the shining star of this movie. And I really loved that. I really loved her performance throughout the movie, especially in the end when she has that moment where she's like trying to comfort herself and sing that song to herself, but you see, like, you could feel the panic in her voice, and she's like, and in between the song lyrics, she's like, oh my god. And it's just her in that spacesuit and the framing on her helmet. I think there's just something so badass about it, and her face is not maybe necessarily the like quote unquote normal like stereotypical action star, but she is her own action star, especially in the sequel. Like she rivals some other action stars in the sequel because obviously this movie is more sci-fi horror, whereas the sequel is, no spoilers, a little bit more action based. And
people don't give Sigourney Weaver her flowers as a final girl. Her and Jamie Lee Curtis are really like the most famous final girls of all time. But because it's a part sci-fi, people don't look at it that way. But 100%, she
Alien's
is
a slasher.
a final girl. Yeah.
Yeah. And by that you mean like in a slasher movie where she's the survivor, the sole survivor. Yeah. I think that's a really cool term for it. I think that is spot on because I mean it's sci-fi, it's horror, but when it really comes down to it, if you bare bones it, it is kind of a slasher movie because this
It's absolutely a slasher, which leans more into my screenplay idea.
Okay. Yeah, no. Off call. Anyone's got any last things that they really, really are dying to say about this movie? Because I'm gonna, if not, no. All right. Overall, I think the movie was fantastic. I loved it. I again have seen it 4 times since 9.5, Jonathan, but it's okay. It's half a finger. But no, I thought it was really, really cool, and I really enjoyed the movie, especially for everything that it had in its time and everything that it did practically. It definitely holds up. If you have not seen the movie, again, what are you doing watching this? Go watch the movie, for fuck's sake. Please do yourself a favor. If you love horror movies, if you love sci-fi, do it because you're gonna get both of these in that. And I'll tell you, if you're just a sci-fi fan, you'll get some really cool stuff. If you're just a horror fan, you'll get some really cool stuff in here. So if either one of those, or if you just like quality movies, watch Alien, because it's a good quality movie. On another note, next week, actually it's not next week because the timeline's a little messed up. Saturday, October 23rd. We will be reviewing. We didn't decide on a time.
23rd? Is that close?
Not yet, but we'll let you know.
You'll get the news. We will be reviewing Sam Raimi's The Evil Dead. The Evil Dead, correct?
Yeah. Hail to the king, baby.
Yes. I won't talk about it because I want to save every single ounce of my thoughts on that movie for the show. I have not even told
going ham on that one.
I have not even told these people whether I liked it or not, and I'm gonna keep it that way because I'm excited to talk about it either way, whether I liked it or whether I didn't, and it's gonna be a really fun time. And we're gonna make sure that Odd sees it. It's gonna be a fun time. At least twice. You might only want to see it once. We'll see. But. Just because of your gore issues, but I don't think it's going to be too bad in this movie because little insight for the next film is that Evil Dead was made.
Right? Is I've seen blood splats before in horror movies, which is clearly just red paint being thrown about. And
you'll be fine. You'll be fine on this one. Evil Dead was made on a budget of $340,000, which is minuscule. To reiterate, Alien, budget of $11 million. $11 million.
Which is still
really small
that's also true. Yeah. And again, the box
back in that day, $11 million.
Decent,
inflation and stuff.
Decent. But yeah, so this is a minuscule budget, bare budget movie, and I'll save my thoughts and everything for that. But yeah, it's been great talking to you guys about Alien, and if you have not seen the movie, please, for the love of God, see the movie.
It's already been ruined for you, but
see the movie.
Go watch it anyway.
You can still enjoy it, and as always, this has been just another horror movie podcast. Tune in next week for The Evil Dead. Peace.